What's up, everybody? How is everybody doing today? My name is Stefan. I'm an American that has been living in Sweden for almost 4 years now. I have done a lot of stuff on my channel comparing American and Swedish culture, and today we got weird things that Americans do, and these are things that I didn't even really realize until I lived outside of America for an extended period of time. But I think people around the world would probably agree that Americans just do this a little bit weird. Now, the first weird thing that Americans do, I already did at the beginning of this video, and that is having your greetings in the form of a question that you're not really supposed to answer.
How's it going?
Going good.
It's decent.
Is that it?
This always confuses Europeans when they go to America and they're at a store or something and the Americans go, "How's it going?" And they start to actually talk about how they're doing. Whereas there's really only one good response to this, and that's like, "I'm doing good, how are you?" I'm not really sure why we do this as Americans. I guess it's a good icebreaker. I mean, for me, I am generally curious how people are doing. I don't expect to hear your life story, but I mean, you can give me a little bit more information than just "good, how are you?" straight back. But that's just normally how we do it in America. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's why it's weird. The second weird thing that Americans do is Americans are like weirdly patriotic. And not in a bad way, just in like a very strong way. Like, Americans are more patriotic than any other people that I have met around the world. And I actually made an entire podcast episode with my best friend Frederick about this, Culture Shocks podcast. I'll link that down below in the description. It's a 30-minute episode where we go in depth in the differences in patriotism in Sweden and America, because this is something that it's not really a big thing here. Like, the Swedish flag is not really displayed in a lot of places. Maybe in the summertime it comes out a little bit more, but like in America, for example, we have American flags everywhere. People are super proud to be from America. I have friends that are Americans that have never been outside of the United States of America that say America is the best country on earth. And I'm like, how can you say that? Because you've never actually been to any other countries? I think the US is a great country, and I think it's really cool to be proud of where you're from, but Americans really take this to the next level. Now, the third weird thing that Americans do, I'm actually going to group this as two separate things because they're kind of similar, but the first one is that we write the date with the month first, and then the day, and then the year. In Europe, they usually write day, month, year, which I think makes a little bit more sense in my mind, where we do month, day, year. I guess if you're verbally saying it, you would say like August 2nd. So I think that's probably where that comes from, that you say the month when you're speaking and then the day. But writing it down, it does seem a little bit weird to do it that way. And also, to add to this third point, it's the fact that we don't use the metric system. The metric system is an insanely easy and simple system to use. Everything's with base 10. Once you get used to it, now that I've been living in Europe for a while now, it's so easy, so simple to use. When Europeans go to America, they're like, what is this strange system that you have 5,280 feet in a mile, you have 12 inches in a foot? I mean, it's completely like random, it seems like. And I think most Americans ourselves can even admit it's sort of weird, the system that we use, but it's just like, that's what we were taught. That's what we grew up with. Even if we can appreciate that the metric system might be a simple and better system, it's just we didn't learn it. So when we hear like 30 degrees Celsius, we have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit. And also for me, it would feel a little bit weird, like, when I first moved to Sweden, I'd be working out at the gym, and I was normally like used to doing like maybe 60-pound dumbbells for like dumbbell bench press or whatever. And then all of a sudden I can barely even do 30 kilograms. So it's like I felt so much weaker lifting in the Swedish gyms because a kilogram is 2.2 times as much as what a pound is. So when you're lifting in kilograms, all the weights look like they're actually much less. Like if you're going to do a bicep curl with 10 pounds in America, that's like barely any weight. That's like less than 5 kilograms. And if you do 10 kilogram bicep curl, that's significantly more. The fourth weird thing that Americans do, and I didn't even really realize that this is a weird thing to do because I was still doing this for years and years after living in Sweden, is asking people what they do for a living. Now, I would say Americans are very naturally curious and maybe even a little bit nosy as a people. They're very curious to know what other people are up to. And also, Americans, they work a lot. I mean, there's not as much work-life balance in America as there is in Europe. For example, a lot of companies in the US have 2 weeks of vacation versus the standard 5 or sometimes even more in companies here in Europe. So it makes sense that this is a popular question in the US. What do you do for a living? Because what you do for a living, what you're working with, takes up such a large percentage of your life. In America, it's almost more connected with your identity, whereas here in Europe, where there's more of a work-life balance, people don't seem to identify as much with their job. It's just like something that they do, but they're still a little bit more independent of that. So it's very, very interesting, the cultural differences when you think about work-life balance, and then also the conversational, outgoing nature of Americans combining. And this is still something that I do to this day. I'm very, very curious what people do for a living, but I'm curious to see what you European people think down in the comments section. Is that weird to ask? And the fifth and final thing I want to talk about in this video that is weird that Americans do is eating dessert for breakfast. And when I say dessert, I don't mean literal dessert, but I'm talking about things that are extremely sugary and sweet first thing when you wake up in the morning. When I was living in the States, I was eating very, very sugary cereals. We would have pancakes with maple syrup and jams and all sorts of things. That was pretty much standard in the US, and I think a lot of people eat like this for breakfast. Here in Europe, it's very, very common that people will just like eat sandwiches for breakfast, at least in Sweden. They have the special Swedish cheese slicer, and they can slice some cheese, put it on a bread, have some meat. That's very, very standard. I don't know as many Swedes that like to have things that are super sweet for breakfast in the morning. And I just think in general, Americans love sweet things. They like to have a lot of sugar in their coffee, like Starbucks, syrups, all these creamers and things like that. It's very, very interesting. And until I moved away from the US, I realized that there was more than one way to eat breakfast, and that pretty much everywhere in the world, people eat breakfast differently. And I think having very, very sweet, desserty type of breakfast is very much an American thing. With that being said, guys, I'm curious what you guys thought was the weirdest thing on this list out of the 5 that I had for you guys here today. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel and you made it to the end, subscribe, because I'm really, really getting close to that 100K. That's been a goal for a very, very long time, and I love having all of you guys with me here in this community. That would mean so much to me if you subscribe to this video. With that being said, guys, thanks so much for watching this one, and I will see you in another video.